It started with a voice that still haunts me. Where are they, you liar? The words sliced through the quiet hum of my office like a siren. I looked up from the quarterly report I'd been annotating, pen still in hand, as the door burst open. My assistant Caleb stood frozen behind them, uselessly stammering, "Mr. Dane is in a meeting." But it was too late. The woman storming and didn't care. Margot Delaney, perfectly coiffed and aging like a blade rather than a rose, marched toward my desk with hell in her eyes. Behind her trailed a younger woman, mid-20s, slim, hesitant, Alyssa, if memory served. Ria's younger sister. I hadn't seen either of them since the divorce. For years. For long, silent years. Margot's heels clacked like gunshots on the hardwood. She slammed a manila envelope on my desk so hard that my coffee sloshed. Our grandchildren, she spat. I blinked, slowly setting my pen down. What? She yanked open the flap of the envelope and tossed several glossy photographs at me. They fluttered across my desk like playing cards, landing in a messy fan. 2 children. A boy and a girl. Maybe 6, maybe 7. Their faces were round and familiar in a way I couldn't place. My throat went dry. Something about the girl's eyes. The tilt of the boy's jawline. You've been hiding them from us, Margot hissed. Don't even bother denying it. I stood, not quite trusting my legs. What are you talking about? I've never, Ria, and I didn't have. No children. Alyssa interrupted, her voice small but clear. Then why's your name on their school forms? On their birth certificates? She opened a leather folder and extracted more papers, copies, notarized, some official looking. We have medical records, school registrations, all under the name Evan Dane. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the edge of one of the photographs. The boy had a cowlick like mine when I was his age. The girl's smile crooked up on one side, just like Ria's. But these weren't my kids. They couldn't be. We never had children, I said, more to myself than to them. Ria left before anything like that happened. Margot snorted. Oh, please. Don't act like you're the victim. She told us everything, how you took the children and vanished. How you shut her out after she gave birth. I shook my head, blinking rapidly. None of that happened. We never made it that far. Alyssa stepped forward. You honestly expect us to believe these kids just coincidentally look like you? Like Ria. I swallowed hard. I didn't know what I expected. For them to walk in, yell, and realize it was all a mistake? For this to be some bizarre prank? None of it made sense. I gestured toward the chair opposite my desk. Please. Sit down. Let's talk. But Margot laughed, a bitter, biting sound. I'm not here for tea. We're here for the truth. Caleb finally stepped into the room, hesitating at the threshold. Sir, should I? Yes, I said quickly. Clear my afternoon. All of it. And bring in the general file on Delaney Holdings. Margot raised a brow. You think this is about business? No, I said, straightening. But I want every record I've ever touched on your family, just to be sure. I don't know what this is yet. Alyssa handed me a USB stick. You'll find more documents there. Videos. Photos. One of them is from a birthday party 3 years ago. You were there. I recoiled. I was not. She didn't back down. You'll see yourself in the background. Holding the girl's hand. I took the USB with trembling fingers and slid it into my laptop. My heart pounded like a war drum. This couldn't be real. My mind began racing through years of memory. Ria and I had done fertility treatments. That part was true. But they never worked. Or so I'd been told. We never made it to the pregnancy stage. And after the 3rd failed attempt, things between us crumbled. She left without warning, leaving a note and half-packed closet. I pulled up the video. Birthday balloons. A backyard. The camera swept across a crowd. Children playing. And there, in the corner, was a man with dark-rimmed glasses, kneeling beside a cake, holding the hand of a small girl. It was me. Or someone who looked exactly like me. My jaw clenched. Margot stepped forward. We're done being shut out. You'll answer for what you've done. I stared at the screen, words failing me. My voice, when it came, was quieter than I intended. I don't know what this is, but I swear to you, I've never met those children in my life. And yet, one of them had my eyes. I couldn't stop staring at the photos. Even after Margot and Alyssa left, the glossy images lay spread across my desk like evidence at a crime scene. The kids, Luca and Mira, Alyssa had said, looked so much like me it was disorienting. My mind rejected it on instinct. It had to be fake. Doctored. A cruel setup. But deep in my gut, something twisted. Not fear. Not yet. Something worse. Doubt. I buzzed Caleb back in. Cancel everything. For the rest of the week. And call Sasha Klein. My assistant raised an eyebrow. Your lawyer? Yes. And have her come here. Not tomorrow. Today. He nodded and disappeared. I leaned back in my chair and tried to slow my breathing. I needed facts. I needed to regain control. But just as I closed my eyes to think, the elevator dinged again. A man stepped in, early 40s, confident stride, gray blazer unbuttoned over a wrinkled shirt. He looked like someone who lived in airports and rental cars. Uninvited. And entirely too familiar with walking into tense rooms. I'm Wes Galloway, he announced. Private investigator, hired by Mrs. Delaney and her daughter. I stood. You weren't invited. He smirked. Neither were they. I hear? Caleb, trailing behind, looked apologetic. He said you were expecting him. I wasn't. Wes didn't care. He dropped a thick binder on my desk with a heavy thunk. It looked like it could survive a house fire. I thought you might want to see what you've apparently been up to these last 7 years. I didn't touch it. You people are all insane. He opened the binder himself, flipping to the first page. A school registration form, Luca Dane. Father's name, Evan Dane. My name. My office address. My cell number. My stomach clenched. Page 2. Pediatrician's intake form. Mira Dane. Same details. A scribbled signature in handwriting I didn't recognize, but the letters matched mine too closely for comfort. Then came the real gut punch, an ID scanned from a hotel check-in in Baltimore. It was a driver's license. Illinois. My name. My photo. But not my license. Different number. A fake. This is identity theft, I said, voice low. Wes nodded. That's one theory. That's the only theory. He flipped another page. A pharmacy record with prescriptions I'd never filled. School photos with me, someone exactly like me, standing beside the kids. I felt like I was hallucinating. He flipped more. Christmas cards from 2 years ago. From the Dane family. One addressed to someone in Wisconsin. One to a P.O. box in Oregon. My face in every one of them. My handwriting. This is all fabricated, I snapped. It has to be. Wes finally met my eyes. Is it? I pushed the binder away. I never had kids. Not with Rhea. Not with anyone. Yet these records, he tapped the binder, say otherwise. Medical forms. School transcripts. Tax documents, even. You've apparently claimed dependents under your name. That's not possible. I'd remember. Wes didn't blink. There's a 6-month gap in your employment records during the final year of your marriage. You were being treated for something then, right? Stress? Insomnia. I narrowed my eyes. How do you know that? Because I'm good at my job. And you're good at planting doubt, too. He didn't deny it. All I care about is the truth. If you're being set up, that'll come out. But if you're lying, I'm not. The door opened again, and thank God, this time it was Sasha. She walked in, sharp as ever in a navy blazer, and that calm authority only seasoned attorneys have. She scanned the room quickly. Wes, the binder, the photos still scattered, and turned to me. Evan? Apparently, I'm a father. Twice over. To kids I've never met. She raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. Wes stepped forward, introducing himself with a smooth nod. Sasha ignored his hand and looked straight at me. Walk me through it. Everything. Slowly. So I did. I told her about the photos, the shouting, the fake documents, the USB stick with my face at that birthday party. She listened with surgical focus, taking notes on a small legal pad with her usual efficiency. When I mentioned the alias, my name used on false licenses, forged school forms, she frowned deeply. This is big, she said. If even half of this is true, we're talking serious fraud. And if someone used your DNA? That caught me. You think this could be biological? I think we don't assume anything until I cross-check those forms. If your name is on those birth certificates, we subpoena the originals. If there's DNA evidence, we test it. And if someone forged consent to use your genetic material, well, we'll find out who. She turned to Wes. Give me everything you have. Now. He hesitated. Client confidentiality. She cut him off. Your client accused my client of hiding children. That puts us in legal motion now. You can either cooperate or find yourself subpoenaed. Wes stared her down, then reluctantly slid a duplicate USB across the desk. Sasha scooped it up and turned to me. I need a few hours, she said. Don't leave the building. And Evan, don't talk to anyone about this. Not until we know what's real. I nodded, dazed. As she left, I sank into my chair again, staring at the binder. Somewhere inside it, Between the lies and the madness was a truth I didn't want to admit. Someone had built a life using my identity. And in that life, I was a father. But I knew better, didn't I? Sasha returned that evening with red-rimmed eyes and a laptop full of fire. She hadn't just skimmed the documents. She had torn them apart, line by line, like the seasoned attorney she was. And yet, even with all her precision, her first words unsettled me more than anything else had so far. Evan, we might have a problem. I leaned forward, every inch of me bracing. What kind of problem? She placed her laptop on the desk and opened a window, digital scans of medical forms, psychiatric evaluations, and insurance authorizations. All of them tied to me. Do you remember taking Lexarum? I blinked. Lexarum? Yeah. It was for the insomnia. My doctor prescribed it a few years before Rhea left. She nodded slowly. Lexarum can cause gaps in memory, especially when mixed with the anti-anxiety meds you were also prescribed. There are documented cases, patients experiencing temporary dissociation, losing chunks of time. I ran the dates. There's a 6-month window when these children were conceived, carried, and born, and it lines up exactly with the period when you were barely functioning. My stomach turned. So you're saying I might have, what? Fathered them and just forgot. I'm saying the records are precise, and someone's gone through a lot of effort to link your identity to these kids. But they're too clean, too curated. She paused, watching me, as if trying to gauge how far she could push. There's another layer to this. That clinic you and Rhea went to for fertility treatments. Monarch Center. In Midvale. Yes. I did some digging. Rhea continued going to that clinic after you two stopped treatments. I stared at her. No, she didn't. We agreed it wasn't working. We stopped together. She didn't, Sasha said quietly. I pulled appointment logs. She went 5 times in the months after your last visit. Alone. My chest tightened. A cold thread of realization began to wind its way through my gut. But we weren't even speaking then. She was practically living with her mother. Why keep going? Sasha's voice softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. That's what I want to know. And there's more. Around the same time, a woman named Elena Cruz, pediatric nurse, filed a paternity suit. It was sealed. The father wasn't named, but the timing fits. Wait. I held up a hand. What are you trying to say? That I donated sperm without remembering it? That Rhea somehow, what? Used my DNA without telling me? Sasha took a breath. It's not impossible. Especially if someone forged your consent. If Rhea took advantage of your condition, your meds, your disorientation, she could have arranged to use your genetic material without ever informing you. I stood and paced behind my desk, running both hands through my hair. It felt like the walls were moving. I remembered those nights, blurred hours, barely any sleep, going to work in a haze, waking up unsure of how I'd gotten home. There were gaps. I'd always chalked them up to exhaustion, to stress from our failing marriage. But could Rhea have really done something like that? The answer came, bitter and fast. Yes, she could have. She was manipulative, even back then, skilled at making everything seem like my fault. I remembered her slamming the bathroom door during arguments, crying into her mother's arms on the phone, telling her friends how distant I'd become. And I had. But I was also medicated, barely coherent at times, trying to survive. I returned to my seat, hands shaking. If she did this, if she used my DNA, had children without telling me, what happens now? Sasha didn't flinch. First, we confirm it. I've already put in a request for a full genetic profile from Elena's kids, with a match test to yours. Discreet. Elena's not fighting it. She thinks the donor was anonymous, and I believe she's telling the truth. Second, we subpoena Monarch Center. Their records. Their lab techs. Everything. If consent forms were forged, they'll have to answer for it. I looked at her. And if the test comes back positive, then we prove you were unaware. That you were drugged, misled, never consented to any of this. And if that's true, you're not just a victim of identity fraud, Evan. You're the victim of medical and reproductive assault. The word hit me like a fist to the gut. Assault. I sat back, heart pounding. My whole world, the one I thought I'd put back together after Rhea left, was collapsing again. Only this time, I didn't even know what pieces I had to begin with. My name was on records I never signed. My image appeared in videos I never remembered. My DNA may have been used to create life without my knowledge. Morning sunlight spilled through the blinds of my office, striping the floor with a warmth I couldn't feel. Sasha sat across from me, laptop open, sleeves rolled up, coffee untouched. She looked like she hadn't slept, but I knew better than to ask. When Sasha locked into something, the rest of the world ceased to exist until she had her answer. And today, she had one. I found her, she said, without preamble. Elena Cruz? Sasha nodded. Pediatric nurse. 6 years at Parkview Children's Clinic. Currently works part-time at St. Grace's downtown. Lives on the south side with the twins. Single mother. No known romantic partners, no litigation since the sealed paternity suit. But this, she turned the laptop toward me, this is what matters. On the screen was a photo. Casual. Likely pulled from a social media account. A woman with olive skin and dark, curly hair knelt between two children, Luca and Mira. They stood in matching red raincoats, grinning like the world was theirs. Elena's arm was slung protectively around them, her smile wide and maternal. But it was the kids that stopped me. Again, their faces. Familiar in a way that no photograph should ever be to someone who'd never met them. I leaned closer. Myra's eyes sparkled with mischief. Luca's stance mirrored a photo of myself as a child that my mother once framed, feet slightly apart, hands stuffed in pockets, a grin that barely concealed defiance. It was eerie. It was impossible. I've seen that expression, I murmured, pointing. That's mine. Sasha looked at me grimly. Exactly. And you're not just imagining it. I ran an early comparison scan. Facial structure, bone symmetry, eye spacing, there's a high likelihood of biological relation. We'll know for certain once the lab confirms. I swallowed. And Elena? What does she think? She's in the dark. She believes the sperm donor was anonymous. She doesn't know the name Ria Dane. I spoke with her carefully, off the record. Told her someone might have used a donor ID fraudulently. She agreed to meet. When? Today. My heart jolted. What now? Sasha closed the laptop. In an hour. She's coming here. I stood so quickly my chair nearly tipped. You should have told me. I'm telling you now. And I didn't want to give you time to spiral. I'm not spiraling. Sasha arched a brow. Okay, maybe I was. I paced, palms slick, breath uneven. I was about to meet the woman who carried 2 children with my DNA. A woman who had no idea I existed. Who probably thought she'd done everything the right way. Through a reputable clinic, anonymous donor, signed forms. And yet, somehow, she'd been roped into Ria's scheme. She was an unwitting participant in the greatest violation of my life. The knock on the door was soft, almost hesitant. I froze. Sasha opened it, and there she stood, Elena Cruz. She looked exactly like her photo, but more tired. Like someone who'd spent years putting others first. Her scrubs were neat but faded. Her hair was tied back in a no-nonsense bun, and her eyes, kind, brown, weary, landed on me with polite confusion. Mr. Dane, she said, stepping in. I cleared my throat. Yes. Thank you for coming. Sasha gestured for her to sit. This is informal. We're not recording. We just need to understand what happened. Elena nodded cautiously. I was told someone might have used a donor ID improperly. That's serious. It is, Sasha agreed. Can you tell us what you remember about the process? From the beginning? Elena clasped her hands. I applied to Monarch because I just lost my job. I wasn't married, but I always wanted kids. They matched me quickly. Told me the donor was anonymous but had strong medical history. No red flags. I never saw a photo. I didn't want one. I didn't want to imagine a man who wasn't going to be there. I just wanted to be a mom. Her voice was steady, but I caught the flicker of emotion beneath it. The IVF worked on the first try. I had twins, Mira and Luca. They're everything to me. And since then, Sasha asked. No contact from the clinic? No updates. None. They said everything was sealed. I never asked. I didn't want to complicate things. I leaned forward. Elena, have you ever seen this woman? I slid Ria's photo across the table. She studied it for a long moment. Then, yes. I think she came in once. Maybe twice. She wasn't staff. I remember because she wore expensive clothes. Didn't seem like someone there for treatments. She wasn't, I said bitterly. That's my ex-wife. Elena blinked. What does she have to do with? She was at that clinic the same time as you, Sasha said. And we believe she forged my consent to use my DNA. Elena stared at me, then back at the photo. What? You weren't supposed to carry my children, I said, voice shaking. Not because I wouldn't have wanted them, but because I never agreed. I didn't even know you existed. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elena whispered, "Oh my God." She looked down, her expression cracking, then back up at me with something like sorrow in her eyes. I thought I did everything right, she said, barely audible. I thought I was protecting them. You did, I said quietly. None of this is your fault. But the truth hung between us, heavy and terrible. Somewhere in the cracks of our lives, a lie had grown into two living, breathing souls. And now, there was no undoing it. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a second. I sat at the edge of my bed, the room silent except for the ticking of the wall clock and the occasional creak of the pipes behind the drywall. My phone was on the dresser, glowing faintly with Sasha's final message from hours earlier. Confirmed. DNA test positive. 99.98% match. They're yours, Evan. Biologically. My blood ran cold every time I looked at that screen. The truth wasn't just a theory anymore, it had weight. It had numbers. It had two names, Mira and Luca. I was their father. Not metaphorically. Not emotionally. Literally. By blood. But not by choice. Sasha had already filed the first batch of subpoenas. The sealed paternity suit. Monarch Center's IVF records. She said something felt off about the entire process. Her gut told her we were looking at more than just one act of fraud. She was right. By mid-morning, she stormed into my office, slapping down a printed report with the same kind of tension a detective might bring into an interrogation room. Found the connection, she said, breathless. It wasn't a random donor assignment. It was deliberate. Your medical file was flagged, but your consent form was forged. By Ria. I stared at her. How do you know? Because she didn't just forge your signature once. She submitted lab requisitions. Authorized payment through your insurance. And then, get this, she filed a donor release form with Monarch, listing you as a known donor for internal family planning. That's how they slipped it through the cracks. My throat felt like sandpaper. You're saying she pretended we were still trying? No, Sasha said, her voice low and furious. I'm saying she gave up on trying with you and used your DNA anyway, but not to have your children herself. She had her brother, Griffin Delaney, submit the partner paperwork on her behalf. They claimed the donor was chosen for compatibility with a third-party surrogate. The words hit me like a crowbar to the ribs. So she gave my DNA to someone else? For someone else to carry? Sasha hesitated, then nodded. Elena was that someone else. I couldn't breathe. She used me, I said, barely above a whisper. Not just emotionally. Not just financially. She violated me. And she lied, Sasha said softly. About everything. About why the treatments weren't working. About stopping them. About leaving. You didn't just lose a marriage, Evan. You lost the right to choose what kind of father you wanted to be. A hot anger flared in my chest, mixing with disbelief. My mind raced back to that miserable chapter in my life, Ria walking out without a warning, claiming I had emotionally abandoned her, that I didn't want children badly enough, that I was the reason for our heartbreak. But all along, she had already used me. Taken my DNA and walked away, keeping the children a secret like stolen property. What kind of person does that? I muttered, pacing the room. Who thinks it's okay to rob someone of their consent, their parenthood, and then vanish into the wind like none of it happened? Sasha didn't answer. She didn't have to. I already knew the kind of person. Ria Delaney, my ex-wife. Is Griffin involved? I asked. Sasha nodded. He submitted the legal partner forms at Monarch. Likely thought he was helping her through some modern family loophole. But it backfired. Because the birth certificates list you've not him. I grabbed the papers, scanning them. My name, Evan Dane, printed clearly as the legal father. No mention of Griffin. No trace of Elena's knowledge in any of the pre-treatment documentation. It was a legal Frankenstein stitched together with forged parts and weaponized lies. She never intended to keep the kids, I said aloud. Not really. She didn't even raise them. She let Elena take over and vanished. So why now? Why send her mother into my office, screaming about stolen grandchildren? Sasha's jaw tightened. Because she needed a villain. You. And Griffin. He filed an emergency custody petition 2 days ago. What? That's why Margot ambushed you. It was all part of the setup. They were going to claim you kidnapped the kids or hid them through alias relocations. But you used Elena to disappear with your children and shut Ria out. I sank into my chair, stunned. They were trying to trap me. Exactly. But we flipped the table before they could. The room felt like it was spinning. I looked at the photo of the twins again, Elena kneeling between them, all three smiling like the world was normal. The innocence in their faces burned more now. They were born into a lie. A lie wrapped in forged signatures, misused sperm, and a mother who never told the truth. Ria won't admit to any of this, I said. Sasha pulled out her phone and tapped a message. She won't have to. We'll confront her with everything. But we're not asking nicely anymore. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Sasha's lips curved just slightly. I just scheduled a formal deposition. Ria's being served in an hour. My breath hitched. The battle was about to begin, and for the first time in years, I wasn't running from the wreckage Ria left behind. I was ready to drag it all into the light. By the time Sasha briefed me on the custody petition, I'd stopped being surprised. Griffin Delaney, Ria's golden boy brother, the family's poster child for charm and privilege, had filed an emergency custody claim on behalf of the Delaney family. The claim alleged that I, Evan Dane, had knowingly taken his biological niece and nephew and relocated them out of state using fabricated identities, effectively cutting their maternal relatives out of their lives. I stared at the document in silence, then let out a bitter laugh. That's rich. The man who filed fake paperwork at a fertility clinic is accusing me of abduction? Sasha didn't smile. It's a trap. The goal was never to win custody. It was to drag you into court, discredit you publicly, and force a settlement that absolves Ria of wrongdoing. They expected you to panic, to either disappear or settle quietly. I pushed the papers away. They don't know me anymore. No, she said, but they think you're still the man Ria painted you to be: disconnected, unstable, emotionally absent. The narrative she's been spinning for years is finally facing scrutiny, and they're scrambling to regain control. But what do they actually want? I asked. Custody of kids Ria didn't raise and Griffin didn't father? Sasha paused, then said something I hadn't considered. They want your silence. I looked at her, confused. She leaned forward, tapping the petition. Ria knows what she did is illegal. Fraud. Medical deception. Potential criminal charges. If Griffin's petition were to move forward and you agreed to a private resolution, shared custody, or even just visitation limitations, she could argue that no one was truly harmed, that everything was a misunderstanding, and the courts would go softer. The medical board might let the clinic off the hook. Her reputation survives. Unless we fight back. Exactly. And we will. The courtroom date was set for the following week. That gave us time, but not much. Sasha worked around the clock to gather evidence, subpoena records, and prepare Elena as a witness. Elena, to her credit, didn't hesitate. Despite the emotional weight of it all, she agreed to appear in court. I have nothing to hide, she told us on a video call. They're my children. I raised them. I didn't lie to anyone. I want the truth out. Still, it wasn't easy. I could see the tension in her eyes, the guilt she was beginning to carry even though none of this was her fault. She had trusted the clinic, followed the law, signed all the right forms. She had done what any mother would do. But now, because of Ria's manipulations, she was being dragged into a legal war she never wanted. I don't know what to tell them, Elena said one night, her voice cracking. The kids are asking why I'm suddenly meeting lawyers. Why I'm nervous. What am I supposed to say? You don't have to tell them everything, I said gently. Just that the grown-ups are trying to make sure everything's fair. She nodded, wiping her eyes. They talk about you, you know. My heart jolted. They do. Yeah, Luca especially. He saw that photo Margot had, the one with you in the background of his birthday party. He said, that man looks like me. I didn't know what to say. I exhaled slowly, the ache in my chest growing sharper. Maybe one day you won't have to explain alone. The day before the hearing, Sasha walked into my office with a thick folder and a rare smile. Found it, she said. Found what? The original consent logs from Monarch. And a gem buried inside, Ria's email communications with the clinic administrator. She referenced the donor's mental health issues as a justification for secrecy. She was talking about you. I clenched my jaw. She used my diagnosis to justify keeping me in the dark. Sasha nodded grimly. It's damning. And there's more. We got a whistleblower, a former lab tech from Monarch who remembered the day your file was pulled. He says Griffin and Ria were both present, pressuring staff to bypass standard verification. We've got a deposition scheduled for next week. I leaned back, stunned. That's the case right there. It's a strong start. But we need to put them on the stand. In public. Under oath. What about the kids? They're safe with Elena. The judge issued a protective order to keep them out of court. But we'll bring their birth certificates, the DNA results, the forged signatures, everything. And if Griffin shows up with his smug, I'm the uncle and savior routine, we'll have the records to bury him. The next morning, I stood in front of the courthouse steps, watching people flood in: press, families, legal aids. And then I saw them. Margot, in a dark suit and oversized sunglasses. Griffin, all jawline and arrogance. And behind them, flanked by her attorney, was Rhea. She looked at me once and turned away. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Let the courtroom be the only place where truth had a voice. This time, I would not let her steal it from me. The courtroom smelled like old paper and cold ambition. It wasn't large, just enough for a few rows of benches and a sense of tension so thick you could slice it with a deposition. I sat beside Sasha, tight at my throat, back stiff, trying not to show the storm building inside me. Across the aisle sat Rhea and her army, Margot, Griffin, and their polished team of attorneys who smiled without warmth and whispered like they already knew the ending. But they didn't. Not today. The bailiff called the court to order, and the judge, a woman named Halloran with sharp eyes and a voice that commanded silence, took her seat. Her presence alone cut through the theatrics. She wasn't here for a performance. She was here for facts. Griffin's lawyer went first. He stood, all poise and syrupy words. Your Honor, we are here today because 2 innocent children have been deprived of their rightful family, grandparents, and uncle, stability. Their biological father, Mr. Evan Dane, took these children across state lines under false names. We seek full custodial rights for the Delaney family to ensure their well-being. I didn't even blink. He'd rehearsed that statement 100 times, but every word was built on sand. Then Sasha rose. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't wave documents or pace the courtroom. She just walked to the center and began to undo the lie, stitch by stitch. Your Honor, this is not a custody dispute. This is the unraveling of a fraud so elaborate it crosses ethical, medical, and legal boundaries. My client, Evan Dane, never fathered these children knowingly. He never consented to their conception. His ex-wife, Rhea Delaney, used forged documents and manipulated medical institutions to create children using his DNA without his knowledge. A ripple moved through the courtroom. Sasha handed Judge Halloran a binder, thick and damning. These, she said, are the original birth records, DNA tests confirming biological paternity, and sealed documentation proving Mr. Dane's identity was used fraudulently. The judge flipped through the contents, brow furrowing deeper with every page. Then came the heavy blow. Elena Cruz, Sasha announced, is here, the mother of the twins. She has agreed to testify. I turned slightly as the door opened, and Elena stepped in. Mira and Luca's faces folded into the lines of her worry. She took the stand, shoulders squared but hands shaking. Sasha approached her with the same gentle force she'd always carried. Elena, she began, did you ever meet Mr. Dane before this month? No, Elena said clearly, looking straight at the judge. I didn't know who he was until his lawyer contacted me. Did you believe the donor was anonymous? Yes. Were you ever told the donor's name was Evan Dane? No, never. Sasha gave her a moment, then asked, do you recall seeing this woman at the clinic? She held up the photo of Rhea. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, twice, I think. She wasn't a nurse or a doctor. She just watched, like she was supervising. The room went still. And the clinic? Sasha continued. What did they tell you about the donor selection? That everything was handled professionally, legally, that I had nothing to worry about. Sasha stepped back. Nothing further. Griffin's attorney stood up, trying to salvage what he could. Ms. Cruz, do you believe the Delaney family should have access to the children? That's not what this is about, Elena said. This is about consent. About truth. I raised them. I love them. And no one, not Rhea, not Griffin, has ever been a part of their lives. The judge leaned forward. Ms. Cruz, do you believe Mr. Dane should be punished for this situation? She glanced at me. Our eyes met. No, she said. He's a victim, too. That was the moment the courtroom cracked. Griffin's facade splintered first. He leaned forward, whispering furiously to his attorney. Margot looked ready to faint. But it was Rhea, stone-faced, silent, who sat motionless, her mouth tight, her gaze locked on the table as if trying to disappear into it. Then Sasha brought out the final piece. We also submit into evidence the signed consent forms used at Monarch Center. Verified forgeries. The original lab technician's deposition is included. He states clearly that both Griffin and Rhea pressured the clinic to override donor verification protocols. The judge studied the pages for what felt like hours. Then she spoke. This court finds that the custodial claim filed by Mr. Griffin Delaney is not only baseless but appears to be part of a coordinated attempt to obscure a larger issue of reproductive fraud. The petition is denied. Additionally, I am ordering a criminal inquiry into all parties involved in the misuse of Mr. Dane's identity and genetic material. Margot gasped. Griffin cursed under his breath. Rhea closed her eyes. Sasha leaned toward me. We won. I didn't answer. I couldn't move. I'd sat in silence for 4 years, thinking Rhea walked away because of my failures, because I couldn't give her what she wanted, because I couldn't fix what broke between us. But now the truth had been laid bare, and it wasn't me who walked away. It was her. With a lie so big, so cruel, it created 2 lives and tried to erase mine. As we stepped outside into the sunlight, the press swarmed. Sasha blocked them. Elena slipped out quietly. And I just stood there, letting the light hit my face, trying to breathe through the weight of justice finally delivered. But justice never felt so heavy. The courtroom victory felt hollow. That night, I sat in my apartment with the overhead lights off, the city buzzing beyond the windows like nothing had happened. The TV was on, muted. News tickers flashed my name in bold. Evan Dane cleared in custody scandal. Fertility fraud case shakes up medical community. My face, my life, reduced to headline bait. And yet, beneath the headlines, 2 children still existed. 2 kids with my DNA. 2 kids who had no idea who I was. I wasn't in their bedtime routines, their scraped-knee memories, their school projects. I was a stranger wearing their smile. A knock at the door startled me. I half expected Sasha, coming with some follow-up, a court update, a new legal minefield to tiptoe through. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was Margot. She looked nothing like the woman who stormed into my office with accusations and fury. She looked spent. Her hair was pinned back loosely, eyes red-rimmed, makeup smudged like she hadn't touched it since morning. I shouldn't be here, she said. No, I agreed. You really shouldn't. Please. I stepped aside reluctantly, letting her in. She moved slowly, like every step took effort. She didn't sit, didn't remove her coat, just stood in the middle of my living room, holding something in her hands. An envelope. I didn't know, she whispered. I folded my arms. Didn't know Rhea forged my signature? Lied to a clinic? Manipulated everyone. She told us you abandoned her, Margot said, voice tight. That you took the children and vanished. That Elena was some girlfriend you used to hide them from us. She said I kidnapped children I didn't even know existed. She nodded. Shame flickered in her eyes. She said you were dangerous. That you wanted to erase our family name. I laughed bitterly. She erased me. She built an entire alternate life around lies, and you believed her. Without asking a single question, Margot opened the envelope and pulled out a photo, 2 kids at a park. Luca and Mira, laughing mid-swing. She held it out like a peace offering. She lied to us, Evan. But the children, her voice broke. They're innocent. They still ask about their father. They don't know what any of this means, but they know something changed. I took the photo and stared at it. My chest tightened. They already have a father. Elena. She's the one who kissed their bruises, who packed their lunches and stood at their school gates. Margot lowered her gaze. I know. We stood in silence for a moment. Then she turned to leave. But before she reached the door, she said, if you ever want to see them, if they ever want to know, I just wanted you to know I won't stand in the way. I didn't respond. I couldn't. After she left, I sat in the dark for hours, staring at that photograph, trying to imagine what it would be like to meet them, to hear them laugh, to be more than a name in court documents. But the truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. The next morning, Sasha called. The judge has opened a criminal investigation, she said. Rhea's being questioned this week. Griffin might get charged too. Good. Elena's okay. A little shaken. The clinic's already sending hush money offers. She's refusing them. I want to help her, I said. Whatever she needs. Legal fees, school costs, whatever. Sasha hesitated. Evan, are you sure that's a good idea? Emotionally, I mean. I'm not trying to play house, I said quietly. I'm just trying to make things right. Later that week, I mailed Elena a check for the legal expenses and a brief note. Thank you for protecting them, I wrote. I'm not sure where this road leads, but I'm grateful they have you. A few days later, a small box arrived. Inside was a crayon drawing. A man with glasses. A girl with curls. A boy with a red shirt. Stick figure smiles. Above their heads, in Myra's blocky handwriting. From your friends. There was no signature. Just that single phrase. I sat with it for a long time. The drawing wasn't proof of forgiveness. It wasn't an invitation. It was something softer. A beginning, maybe, or just a sliver of light in a long hallway of uncertainty. That night, I pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star, and I stared at it until the sun came up. The morning Ria was arrested, I didn't celebrate. I didn't breathe a sigh of relief or pour myself a drink or stand in the mirror feeling victorious. I just stood at the window, watching the city move like it always did. Cars clogging the streets, people rushing to jobs, lives continuing without interruption. But mine wasn't continuing. It was finally catching up. Sasha texted me the news first. Ria booked. Charges include fraud, identity theft, and obstruction. Griffin under review next. I stared at the screen. It was surreal, seeing the name of the woman who once slept beside me now printed in a message alongside words like booked and charges. A woman who once dreamed of baby names and beach houses with me. A woman I thought I knew. The media frenzy exploded. Reporters camped outside Monarch Center. The clinic tried to issue vague statements, blaming administrative miscommunication and unauthorized document handling. But Elena wasn't having it. She stood on the courthouse steps the next day, with Sasha beside her, and gave a statement that sliced through the legal jargon like a scalpel. I trusted a system that failed all of us. I never wanted headlines. I never wanted lawsuits. I wanted children. And now I want them protected from this, from lies, from the weight of secrets they didn't choose. I watched the video 3 times. Her voice never wavered. I hadn't spoken to her since that day in court. We'd exchanged messages, brief, careful, respectful. I sent what I could, legal support, coverage for her rising attorney bills, and quiet reassurances that I didn't want to disrupt the life she'd built. I only wanted to repair the damage I never meant to cause. Still, we didn't talk much about the kids. She was drawing boundaries, and I respected them. But one afternoon, weeks later, I came home to find a padded envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside, a stack of papers from her lawyer, guardianship clarifications, school records, health updates, and a note written in careful penmanship. I told them the truth, the parts they could understand. They know you're real. They know you didn't leave. I read it 3 times, then folded it and placed it in the same drawer where I'd kept the court summons, DNA results, and the first photo Margot ever threw on my desk. Proof of the storm I'd survived. Letters started arriving from Margot, too. At first, I tossed them, guilt-soaked apologies I had no room to unpack. Then came birthday cards for the twins, addressed to Elena, but forwarded through her lawyer. She was trying, in her own way, to patch a legacy of damage with glitter glue and colored paper. One day, a package arrived from her with no note, just a framed picture of the kids holding up signs that spelled out, "Thank you." Myra's handwriting had improved. Luca had lost a front tooth. That was the day I finally sat down and wrote her back. It wasn't long, just a paragraph. I'm not sure what the future looks like. I don't expect anything, but if they ever need me, need anything, I'm here. Not as a symbol, not as a stranger, just a man trying to do the right thing. Tell them I see them. I carry them with me. I didn't know if she'd respond, but a week later, I got a photo. Not from Elena, from the twins. It showed 2 pieces of art, childlike drawings. One of a courtroom with stick figures and a giant heart above the judge. The other of a tall man with glasses standing under a rainbow with 2 kids hugging him from each side. No names, no captions, just a snapshot of their world and the place they were beginning to carve out for me inside it. Sasha filed a civil lawsuit shortly after against Monarch, against the individuals involved in falsifying records. She was relentless. A settlement came within 2 months. The money was substantial, but it didn't undo anything. Elena chose to put the funds in a trust for the twins. I didn't touch a cent. I'm not owed anything, I told Sasha. I just want my name cleared, formally, permanently. No loopholes. No residual shadows. She nodded. We'll make sure of it. In the months that followed, I moved quieter. Spoke less. Stopped answering interviews. Stopped looking at headlines. There was no peace in the noise. And then one day, in a letter that arrived by registered mail, Elena wrote me something I hadn't expected. They asked if they'll ever meet you. I told them, when the time is right, maybe they will. I read that sentence until my hands ached from holding the paper. She didn't know me that, but she gave it anyway. A door not opened, but no longer locked. I whispered, more to myself than to Sasha, how can I not remember something like that? How do you forget your own children? Sasha leaned forward, gentler now. Because they weren't yours, Evan. Not by choice. Not by design. If this happened the way I suspect it did, Then you didn't forget. You were never told. You weren't given the chance to be a father. I looked at the photo on her laptop again. The boy's smile. The girl's eyes. Both undeniably mine. Or at least part of me. But was that enough to make me their father? I didn't have the answer. Not yet.